National interest this week is staying with national politics because many interesting things are happening. They may not be in our top headlines, but beneath the surface, some ground or some tectonic plates in Indian politics are shifting. So here is the story, or here is the argument. Check some facts out. Between the 2009 and 2014 to 2019 general elections, the BJP nearly doubled its national vote share. Nearly doubled it. Not fully, but nearly. The more remarkable thing is that on all evidence, it is just as dominant now after so many years. Meanwhile, India's economy has gone into a tailspin of sorts in a long period of stall since 2017. That's 5 years now. Unemployment is at a historic high, rising inflation, especially fuel and edible oil prices, and there's been 2 years of the pandemic pain. Yet the voters of the BJP, and more specifically Narendra Modi, are steadfast. This isn't just the committed BJP voters or the ones we might describe as core Hindutva voters. That is the number that voted for the BJP even in 2009, about 19% of India's vote. It's the additional new crores that the party attracted later under Modi, whose commitment has looked unshakable even now. They accept and fret over all the negatives, economy, unemployment, high prices, all the things that we just mentioned. But you ask them, so who will you vote for next time? And the reply is the same, Narendra Modi and BJP. Now, it might sound odd or counterintuitive, but it isn't if you listen to their reasons. Where, what, and who is the alternative? How can we vote for that Rahul Gandhi and the Congress? And who wants another Khichdi coalition back? We've had enough of it. Pag gaye usse. If there is no alternative is the reason for so many of these non-traditional BJP voters to stay put in that camp, some of it is beginning to change. An alternative is now emerging, but it isn't an alternative to the BJP and Narendra Modi. An alternative is emerging instead to the Congress. That's a critical political shift in India, and it's quite evident now. Now, even in this Modi epoch that began, I'd say in 2012-13, a remarkable fact has stood out, that the Congress has retained its minimum core vote of around 20%. Even in the routes of 2014 as well as 2019, it was still more than any 5 parties, other than BJP of course, any other 5 parties put together, that 20% vote share that the Congress had. The Congress therefore remained the core of any future anti-BJP coalition or challenge. Further, as long as it retained this loyal vote bank, this core, it was impossible for any other party or coalition to challenge Narendra Modi because Congress had the 20%, Modi and NDA had about 40%. Now that also gave the Congress its negotiating power, whether for a new coalition against BJP and Narendra Modi or while dealing with the Prashant Kishore. That ground is now eroding. Now I understand that the Congress people will be maha annoyed at me, mad at me for saying this, but they could also look at it another way. While it is bad news for them, it isn't great news for the BJP either. It isn't better for the BJP either, because the BJP would fear that their non-traditional voters, that's about half of their vote, they are getting liberated from their chronic excuse of, quote, there is no alternative, can't vote for the Congress or the Gandhis, unquote. That's changing now. Now it follows that what's bad for the Congress now is also not so good for the BJP. So far the BJP has been smug, knowing that the Congress has an unblemished, pakka record of not making a comeback once it loses power decisively or badly or comprehensively in its state. As we have argued in an earlier national interest, despite having the second largest vote share nationally, the Congress does not own any state. Now some of that is changing at this point. Now there was a pattern established, say around 2014, when the Congress party began getting wiped out of states it once dominated. The most remarkable losses were in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. In one, it now has 0 elected presence, that's in Andhra, and in the other it is small and declining. If at all, in both these states, the BJP seems rising as the opposing pole to the ruling regional leaders than the Congress. Check out also what so recently happened in the one state the Congress could still have called its own, though it's qualified, at least to some extent. That was Punjab. It lost out badly, but not to traditional rival the Akali Dal, because it could have then said, "Theek hai, once the Congress comes to power, once the Akali Dal comes to power." It was routed because a new alternative emerged to itself. It was routed because much of its vote was vacuum cleaned by yet another secular challenger of the BJP, that's Aam Aadmi Party. Exit poll data shows that about half of the Hindus and Dalits traditionally with the Congress moved to Aam Aadmi Party in this election. BJP may have won just 2 seats, but it saw its main national challenger greatly diminished. Is that such a fun thing? Let's talk about this a bit more. Now, this is a mixed blessing because in this mixed blessing, the BJP also saw a new, noisier, sharper, more populist and ruthless challenger begin rising in Arvind Kejriwal and AAP. How an AAP government is a challenger on a scale very different from that of the staid conventional Congress, we are seeing play out in the Tejinder Bagga Tamasha now. You've never seen a Congress state government, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Punjab. You've never seen a Congress state government, including in Punjab, because they had the same police, same creative police. Remember, last week's national interest, we had said that all police forces in India do creative writing with their FIRs and charge sheets, but none is as colorful as Punjab. So you are seeing evidence of that now. So I feel vindicated on that one. Now, Modi government has never seen a Congress state government do any such thing. Now, we are picking straws in the political wind elsewhere. In the recent elections in Goa, Congress dropped nearly 5 percentage points from its 2017 vote share, despite the BJP being a particularly unpopular incumbent. Goans were angry with the BJP. It is just that they looked for an alternative, not just to the BJP, but also to Congress, because Congress didn't look like such a new thing compared to the BJP, because they'd been there in the past and many of its people had moved to the BJP. So maybe the voters were not even able to make that distinction. So nearly 7% of Goans voted for Aam Aadmi Party this time, and they got some seats from Goa, and more than 5% for Trinamool. In fact, for effect, I could also add in a little over 1% for NCP. If you add all these votes together, this was essentially the anti-BJP voters, but unwilling to return to Congress. Add these to the Congress's vote share. Congress's vote share was 23.46%, and BJP would be routed. Even more recent are the Guwahati municipal elections. Now, Assam is a state which Congress ruled for 3 terms until BJP beat it. They still fancy being a strong opposition, definitely the second party there, and they hope to win back power the next time. In the capital city and the political heart of the state now, they were run so close by Aam Aadmi Party as to cause a fright. And if they are not frightened, they are sleeping. The BJP swept the poll with 60% vote share, leaving the Congress a distant second with just 13.72%. But snapping at the Congress's heels was Aam Aadmi Party with 10.69% vote. Very close. Significantly, Aam Aadmi Party also won a solitary seat in the municipal election, while the Congress scored a cipher, a big 0. Now, this is another little indication that an alternative is emerging in national politics, though not to the BJP, but to Congress. Now, it isn't all about Aam Aadmi Party. I'm not even making any predictions that 2024 will be Modi versus Kejriwal. A lot of politics has to play out in the 2 years going ahead to 2024 elections. But it's about the inability of the Congress to retain even its most loyal vote, where another acceptable option becomes available. It was Jagan in Andhra, KCR in Telangana, TMC in West Bengal, Mamta's party, and Aam Aadmi Party in Punjab and elsewhere lately. Now, how fragile is the party's hold has also become evident in the recent Tamil Nadu local body elections. An apples to apples comparison isn't possible because the Congress contested in partnership with Big Brother DMK there. It secured 3.31% of the vote in this municipal election, but the BJP contesting by itself collected more than 5% of the vote, and this would have alarmed the Congress party. Now, there is a traditional national party vote in Tamil Nadu, which the Congress retained even though it never won the state by itself in the 60 years since 1962. 1962 is the last time the Congress party won elections in Tamil Nadu. 67 DMK came to power, and since then it's been a Dravid party. Often Congress has been in partnership with it. Now, if BJP vacuums a large part of this national vote in Tamil Nadu or national party vote in Tamil Nadu, it will be a killer blow for the Congress. And if the Congress loses the ability to bring in that national constituency vote, what use will it be even as a junior partner for the DMK or AIA-DMK? They'd rather go alone or maybe go with the BJP instead. Now, one look at the political map of India would tell you the Congress, whether it's in power or not, still retains significant foothold only in the following states. That's Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, it's in power there, Madhya Pradesh, Haryana, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Gujarat and Maharashtra. In the rest of the states, after Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, it's not in power. In the last one, Maharashtra, it's in power in a three-party coalition. Now, it will need to watch very closely elections in Himachal and Gujarat later this year, because Aam Aadmi Party will be on its case. Already, it has done well in Surat municipal elections and also run the Congress close in Gandhinagar. Aam Aadmi Party got 21% of the vote there to Congress party's 27.9. For a party just coming in, it's a lot. What they've done is, they've taken the Congress party's claim away. At least that's an indication to be the main party, the only party to challenge Narendra Modi in his home state. In Maharashtra, LI NCP is gaining on the Congress. In Haryana, it has its house persistently in disorder. Rajasthan has dissent. You know, anytime you talk about Rajasthan government, you say Gehlot, you say pilot. And nobody knows what the party is doing in Gujarat, except the young leader it appointed there with much fanfare just the other day, that's Hardik Patel. He seems to be furious and on his way out bitterly. So here then is the irony. The BJP can't be sure if it should celebrate that the old rival is fading or worry the new ones are rising. I'd say more of the latter if you take a long-term view, because the last thing the BJP wants to see is alternatives rising, if only to the Congress.